Happy Halloween, everybody. This is Joey, or as you may know me, Postulant Phyllis with the Light of Day. Commonly, I get asked how I achieve some of the makeup looks that I do. And so I thought that it might be a good idea to make a step-by-step video to show you some of the processes and some tips and tricks of things that I normally do. I hope you enjoy. The first step to prepping my face is to actually block out my eyebrows for this look. So I'm going to use my trusty Kryolan brow stick, my favorite, to begin the process. My brows are really thick, so it's very difficult for me to cover my brows, and it took a lot of attempts for me to learn how to do it appropriately. So what I do is I start with the stick. Some people will warm it. That works really well. I don't particularly find any need because you want to find the right balance of wax. Too much is not a good thing. It ends up, it'll ball and roll, and eventually it'll lift because there's too much wax, and too little, well, you know what happens there. The brows lift and they're not covered appropriately. So begin just by really lightly stroking it through the brow, and I'll even work against the grain of the hair. Some people will use a palette knife for this to smush it down. I've tried that, and it generally just ends up irritating my skin. And I find this process irritating enough. I lose some eyebrow hair during this process. So I just take it and really press it down into the brow. And then I'll take my finger and just make sure that I've got it complete. And I'm going to push the brows up and over so that they lay as flat to the skin as possible. Some people can get away with just using the Kryolan brow wax and calling it a day. If your brows are thin enough, that works. For me, my brows have a mind of their own, and so I actually have to do the second step of sealing them down with a bit of spirit gum. The spirit gum that I'm going to use is the Kryolan spirit gum here. And this is a great little small container of it. I much prefer the large container. It has a better brush. This one will do, though. And so now that I've waxed the brow, I'm going to take the spirit gum and seal over the wax. So once I get enough on there, I'll generally take my finger, and again, just so I can feel that I've glued every area. Sense of touch is really important in this step, because if you miss any areas with glue when you get the makeup over it, you're definitely going to notice it. So I also like to go slightly above the brow to get all those little baby hairs that kind of linger above the brow area. You want to be careful too not to have too much spirit gum on your brush. If you drop spirit gum into your eye or eyelashes, you're probably actually going to be cussing my name because I was the one who suggested that you use it. It burns, and if it gets in the eyelashes, it can be extremely difficult to get out. So I've actually begun working on the complexion piece of this look, and as you'll notice, it is a kind of a pale periwinkle blue. It's not purely white. The look will be white in some components, but also have a lot of elements of blue in it. What I'm using to achieve this look and this color is my trusty Kryolan Clown White. It comes in a variety of sizes. This is the largest. I tend to go through a lot of this, so I buy it in bulk. And also a little bit of Makeup Forever Flash Color in number 20. And I love these. They have a high pigment load. They are grease-based, so they will need to be set with a powder, and this entire complexion is actually grease-based, and so it will hold up really well if I sweat. If I get hot, it does have a tendency to melt, so you may want to make sure to set it really, really well. Okay, so I'm just finishing the first layer of the foundation. I've switched to my trusty Sephora brand foundation brush. Because I really like the way that it lays the product on, and I'm kind of going over it and getting it a little bit more even in those areas where it was maybe a little blotchy, particularly because I am sweating a little bit. So I'm just putting those finishing touches, and then afterwards what I'm going to do is use this foundation brush with the undiluted flash color and start contouring a little bit before I powder the look and start shaping the face a little bit. So now I'm using the undiluted flash color and my foundation brush in order to contour and shape the face a little bit. There'll be a lot more contouring later, but this gives us a nice start and allows me to mark where I'm going to contour in a really blended way, since we're still working completely with cream product here. And so I'll start at the out by my ear and go underneath the cheekbone. Also behind the jaw and underneath the jawline, because we could all use a little slimming under there, I think. And so that gives us a nice start for where the contouring is going to go. I'll also put a little bit at my temples and around the hairline a bit. And so you can see where the contouring really, it starts to shape the face a little bit. So I'll actually take this now and blend this into the look. And it's really subtle, but it, again, just gives us kind of a start of where everything's going to be contoured and provides a shape to the face. One of the things that happens in a look where you actually change the color of the skin is a lot of times the skin gets really flattened out and loses a lot of the dimension, and you have to recreate that. The most essential part of the complexion process is the setting powder and appropriately setting the foundation. Otherwise, as you work, things will stick in odd places, and then of course the makeup won't stay on as long as you want it to. So I'm using a little bit of MAC Invisible Set powder, which is completely clear and translucent, with a large powder brush, like this one right here. And what I'm going to do is actually pour the powder onto the skin rather than dipping back and forth with the brush into the powder. And the reason I do that is that this is very sticky. There's a lot of grease involved here, and so you want to put enough powder on the skin so that you can really move it around. Otherwise, your brush, the natural bristles, will start to actually pick up the grease paint, and will start to it'll start to get stuck into the brush, and we definitely don't want that. So I actually take the container of the loose powder and just actually drop it onto the skin. The next step is to begin the highlight and contour of the complexion process, and for that I'm going to use a little bit of MAC, Frozen White Studio Fix. It's one of my favorite products. I can't live without it, and you can actually see that that's true because I've used most of this one, and I always have a backup on hand. I'm going to be using it with a small buffer brush, and I'm just going to apply right in here in this area to get a kind of a triangle of light, and then I'll carry it up over the tops of the cheekbones. And I'll use a kind of a pressing, buffing motion. It'll also set underneath the eye. I'm not going to use too much setting powder underneath the eye because, first of all, it makes you look older, and who wants that? And second, there will actually be color there later. I'm also going to highlight the brows with it. It'll again layer on the coverage. And also, this is going to be a kind of a no-brow look. So I want the brow as covered as possible and highlighted to sort of imply a brow, but there won't actually be one. I'll also use a little bit to set the eyelid, and that'll set us up for the shadow that we're going to use later.